screen, right, Mark?
Yes, you're good. Welcome, everybody, to today's office hours, turning your data into dollars part 2. So it's been right at a month ago. I think it was on the 5th, 4th, something like that, of last month. Kendra went through the process of turning your data into dollars, part 1. And I'm going to go ahead and put a link to that in the notes so that you guys can have access to it. Great content, great information. And she wanted to dive in and do some additional stuff. So we're going to go into that right now. For those that don't know me, my name is Mark Stepp. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve, and spent the last 33 years just in real estate technology, helping agents understand technology, the why, the things that you guys do every day, and turning that into processes and systems and figuring out how to do that. Kendra?
Yep. And my name is Kendra Rouse. I'm in our premium services department. So our entire department works with you to make sure that your systems and processes are, as efficient as they can be, and that they're up and running inside of Realvolve, and that you're set up for success. So like Mark said, we're going to be talking about turning your data into dollars. And so the whole premise or the goal behind this is you can have, 10,000 contacts inside your CRM. And if you're not doing anything with them, then what's the point, right? So it all matters about, efficiency and process, and what information you're storing on contacts, and then how you decide to use that information to your advantage. So we're going to kind of go over, reiterate, as a reminder, Mark just put in that defining your database worksheet. If you were not here last time, I would tell you to check out facebook.com/groups/Realvolve. The first part of what we're talking about today, that webinar was posted there. And we're really talking about the basics of contact management. So where are your contacts currently? Are they all inside of Realvolve? What information are you going to be storing on those contacts? We're really going to take that today and say, what have you finished that worksheet? Have you decided what information you're going to store in contacts? Is it in the system? And then what can we do with that? How can we take that a step further? What are some of the things that you can be doing inside of Realvolve to really manage contacts, to brand yourself, to make sure that you're maximizing your database to work for you and ultimately make you money? Okay, so some of the goals that we had set previously, and as always, you guys, as we go through this, if you have questions, I'm okay with you stopping me, ask me your question, put it in chat. We'll go over it if it's not related to what we're talking about currently. We'll have some Q&A time at the end. And so feel free to ask any questions that pop in your head, or if you came to office hours with things that you wanted to go over, feel free to put those in chat and we'll get those addressed as well. So again, take a look at that defining your database worksheet if you've already completed it. If you haven't, take a copy of it. It's theirs for you to use. So some of the things that we're going to take a look at that you should have set up last time, hopefully we'll show you some more context on how you can be using those things today. So are all of your contacts in Realvolve? You've got a few ways we talked about. You can upload your database. You can enter in individual contacts. You can use our app to add contacts. You can use some automation behind Zapier, things like that. So if something comes in automatically, we get it in the database? So hopefully you've taken some time and looked at those things. You want to make sure that you have some kind of systemization as far as how you're classifying your leads. And so, are they coming in as suspect, prospect, lead? How are you defining those, and what are you qualifying to move them through your funnel? So have you set a stage and a status for each of your contact? And hopefully at this point, you're using that contact cross section, or you've defined a way to nurture those contacts. And we'll take a look at what that looks like inside of Realvolve shortly. So this is that contact cross section. And so what this tells me is that, right here on this left photo down here, I have 8 people that are suspects, and the system's telling me those 8 people need to be contacted. So we'll take a look inside of Realvolve and see kind of what that looks like and how you manage your contacts using this contact cross section.
Yeah, I created that contact cross section as a real fail safe for those people that maybe are not on a workflow. They've fallen off the edge of a workflow or whatever. They've ended whatever workflow process they've been in, but now, you know, they still need to be contacted or they still need to be looked at. And using the contact cross section, the rules that go along with it, it allows you to make sure that they don't get left behind.
Yeah, for sure. And so the good thing about the contact cross section is that if you define three things, a stage and a status, okay? So a status is over here on the left, and I'm sorry, stage, and then your status at the top. So if you define those two things inside the system and put a last contact date or a last personal visit date, that person qualifies to show up on that contact cross section. And the benefit behind that is that that person's not going to fall off of that contact cross section. They will always show up every certain number of days until you disqualify them. So as Mark was saying, as long as, you know, it's kind of a fail safe. If that person's on the contact cross section, you will be notified that that person needs to be contacted. So let's take down here on the right, up at the top in your contact cross section, you have a filter on and a filter off. You can toggle between the two by clicking on it. And I'll show you this when we get inside the system. But filter off says these are the total number of people in the database that qualify. You know, in this case, let's take suspect and aware. There's 9 people that I have defined as suspect and aware. With the filter on, the system's saying 8 of the 9 of those people, it has been over the amount of time that I established that I would contact every single suspect. And by default, suspect is every 2 days. And so the system's telling me you have 8 of the 9 of those people that it has been over that 8 days that you need to contact them. And so I can see here very quickly, just by looking at this widget, these are the people I need to focus on. These are the people that I need to ensure that don't fall through the crack. And ultimately, if you look at this left hand, suspect, prospect, lead, client, and past client as a funnel, how well am I doing? Am I moving my suspects to prospects, to lead, to client, ultimately to past client? So just really looking at this also as a funnel and way of managing that can also be super beneficial.
The colors on there, I've been asked a lot of times as far as what did the colors mean. We've put a weighting scale on them, a weight scale on them, so that if there are people that are more important in a certain type of list that you really, really need to get to, they're going to be on the redder scale. The most important would be the reddish, yellow, blue, and then the aquas is the least important type thing, and all your zeros are going to be in that aqua side. But even though it's the same number in certain cases, the scoring of your contacts will also dictate the importance of which ones you need to contact. So it has a multi-layer piece to it, but you know, you can actually see the count, and then you can go in and see the people if you click on the actual box itself, and she'll show that later.
And so how that information is inside of the system, this is what we kind of took a deep dive into, setting those contacts up properly so that they even make it to that widget. If this doesn't look familiar to you, go back and take a look at that part 1 of what we talked about, because this is what qualifies that contact to be on here. Inside of the contact, we have set their stage to trust, their status to client, and under their contact date, we've put at least one last call date or one personal visit date. Having these 3 things done makes a person show up on that widget. Okay. So once they're there, you can easily manage them, and we'll kind of take a look at what that looks like. So some of the goals for today: make sure you put your, your defining your data worksheet to use. And the reason for that is if I go in and I put all of my leads as suspect and trust, and they're showing up on there, but when I look at that, I don't understand the fundamentals behind, well, I've set up all of my suspects to, I'll be in communication with them every 2 days. And so really the importance, besides getting them on that widget, is really having a plan to manage lead types. Okay. So if you just say, we have suspect, lead, prospect, client, and past client, what does that mean to you? So my goal is that you use that worksheet and start assigning a time with a type of lead. And so if you have past client, which I would also suggest that you probably use as your sphere or established relationship bucket, but by default, that's going to be every 90 days. And so we went over last time how you go in your settings and define each one of those to you, but it's very critical that you do that. So just having people on that widget without a time frame associated with them really isn't going to maximize your success. Our clients are defaulted at once a week. So if we go up the funnel, we've got suspect at 2 days, prospect at 3 days, lead and client once a week, and your past clients or your sphere at once a quarter. And that can be whatever you want, but the importance is knowing that the system has defined those things by default for you. And so really use that last webinar to update that or change that, and use that worksheet to define what that means to you so that you can start using it. So again, updating your status or your settings inside Realvolve to match your worksheet after you've completed that. Making sure, as we just talked about, that contact has a stage, a status, and at least one of those dates assigned so that they show up on that contact cross section. And then once they're on there, you need to check that contact cross section, ideally in a systematized way, so that it stays as close to possible to zero as possible. Because if you can come in on, let's just say today's Wednesday, and I have time to, get on Facebook and shoot one person a Facebook message and another person a text message and make 2 phone calls, then that's okay. But making some kind of plan to have a personal touch is the entire goal of that widget, to maintain and create established relationships, so that these, if it's a lead, that it turns into a client, and if it's a past client, then in the future it turns into a client again. We're also going to elaborate a little bit more on how we can work our database in other ways. We're going to take a look at our 10-year contact nurture workflow, which you all should have inside of your system as a way to touch base with established relationship. And then maybe thinking about a few other ways that we can use the system to brand ourselves as agents. So a monthly newsletter or a holiday emails, or maybe using a branding workflow, which we're going to talk more about branding workflows next time as well. All right, so let's go into Realvolve and to put exactly what we just talked about into practice. I'm an agent. I wake up this morning. The first thing I'm going to do, not check my emails. Okay. I'm going to protect my time. And I'm going to say, I'm going to allocate 15 minutes to do this. And I would suggest that you set a time, put a recurring event on your calendar at a time that you would be okay with contacting people. Okay. So if you wake up at 4 a.m., I don't want you to send someone a text message at 4 a.m. So maybe your processes are going to be a little bit different. But think about, what is the time in the morning where you'd be okay with contacting those people? And so for me, it's 9 o'clock. So I'm going to come in here every day at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to look at this contact cross section with my filter on. With my filter off, this tells me the total number of people that just qualify to be on the contact cross section. I don't need to know that right now. I need to know the people that the system says, hey, it's been over the amount of time that you said that you would contact these people. These are the people you need to focus on. Okay. Now, how or who I choose, ideally, this should be at 0 at the end of the day. But as you can see, this is a test account and it has a lot of people on here. Am I going to contact these 50 people today? I probably don't have time for that. So if you are just establishing your contact cross section, or you find yourself with a lot of people on here, you may need to prioritize who or how you're contacting people. And so for me, that's my clients. Okay. I want to take a look at those first. Those people are who I'm actively under contract with, or I have a listing with. By default, I'm contacting them once a week. This tells me that, I've got 19 clients that it has been over a week that I have contacted them, or at least I've told the system that I've contacted them. So to me, I want to focus on them. So to access this list of people that need to be contacted, I'm going to click onto the number. And as Mark was saying, if I hover over this, it's giving me more information on this bucket of people. It's telling me that this is my client trust bucket. They have an average score of 41. with a score range of 25 to 99. So each one of the clients in this bucket has a score between that. And so if I'm trying to get a little bit more insight or statistics behind, how my client relationship score is, it's giving me that here. So if I click in here, the system is going to order these people that need to be contacted and put the person that has been contacted the furthest, that needs the most contact. It's been the most amount of time since I've contacted them, at the top. And so I can see that here because Lisa Rubble, it's been 629 days. It's been more amount of time than Emily at 616 days. Okay. So I have access to anyone here, but it's giving me those people that probably need to be contacted first at the top. So I also have access to the relationship score over here on the right. So if I've decided I'm going to contact Lisa Rubble, if I click on this contact, I'm going to open up this widget and it's going to give me access to do a few things. What this widget cares about, as we talked about, because we had to define this when we set up this contact, it's looking at last call date or last personal visit date. So as you can see here, I have a last call date of September 16th for Lisa. I don't have a personal visit date, but again, because it's one of the two, the system, it still qualifies her to be on that. So the system is expecting me to have contacted Lisa at least once a week. Obviously, this is, way overdue. And so if I click on this last call date, maybe I called Lisa, got a hold of her. I can click on today. It's going to update to today's date. And when I back out of here, that person is gone because this person, we've told the system, I contacted Lisa today. The system says you should be contacting Lisa once a week. So it says you did that. Lisa's going to show back up in another week. So I'm going to systematize, or I'm going to work through each one of these people on this contact cross section until it goes to 0. And so a few other things that this contact cross section does that help me use it is when I click on here, I have the ability to do a few things. This very first icon is a note. And so any note that I add here is going to be stored under the notes and correspondence for this contact. I have the ability to access email or text messages. And additionally, any of my templates, my contact templates would be accessible here as well. Same thing with text. I would have access to any of my templates. And then again, here in the date field, I'm going to update my last call date or my last personal visit date. In the event that I talk to Emily and Emily is out of town for 3 months, okay? Now, Emily still is a client, but maybe this isn't the best thing, but let's just go back to a past client where I talk to them and there's some reason I wouldn't want to contact them in my system defined amount of time. And so a past client or sphere of influence, I've said I'm going to contact them once a quarter. But for whatever reason, this contact, I don't want to contact them until September. The other date field that is going to use to change the way this widget works is my postpone contact date at the bottom. I can essentially change the date that I want to contact them again. And so in this case, I'm going to contact this person at the end of October. And so I've essentially overrode my once a quarter, and I've chosen the next time that I'm going to contact this date or this person. So when I back out of here, again, this person has updated and the system now knows to take this person off of this widget, bring them back at the time that I've defined that. Anything you want to add on that, Mark?
Again, it's just a matter of making sure they don't fall through the cracks. That was our whole intent of this particular widget, because so many people, you put them on a workflow, you run that workflow, sometimes they fall off the bandwagon and you don't have them doing things anymore. So by using contact cross section, you can identify a fail-safe time frame. You can identify a skip period, basically a postponement period in the event that they're not there. So you did a great job of explaining all that. Absolutely.
So if you're not using the contact cross section, you still have questions on it, I would again urge you to go back to that first video that we did, part 1 of this series, because it really breaks down how do you set that up. Once you set that up, it's just a matter of maintaining this cross section every single day, making that commitment that you're going to spend that 15 minutes to come in here and make sure each one of these boxes is down to 0. The second part of that is you also need to have a plan in place for new contacts that you bring in. If you qualify somebody for a contact cross section, that's great. But are you ensuring that new contacts, as they come in, also are, being classified so that they come in on the contact cross section? If you have Zapier or some automation set up, there is automation behind making sure people come in on the contact cross section automatically. So for instance, if you get a lead capture from your website, we can say through Zapier, any lead capture that comes in is defined as a suspect and aware, and make them put on the contact cross section. So, there is some automation behind this to ensure that nobody falls through the cracks. So again, if I'm coming in the morning, I am spending time on my contact cross section, and then I'm going to my contact or my activities. These are my two things that I want to check every single day in the morning. I want to make sure are good, that I've done what I need to do for the day. If I click on this circle with the check mark in it, it's going to take me to my list of activities. If I click on this chevron, it's going to bring these activities over here into a new view. And I'm going to have the ability to work them from this view or over here on the left-hand column, essentially the same thing. As you can see, I've got an intro call to Beth Homebuyer. This is no different accessing this activities all view. If I went into Beth Homebuyer's contact record, I would see this same activity here. The difference is that I'm in Beth Homebuyer's contact record. It's only showing me activities that are associated with Beth Homebuyer. But probably what I'm doing in the morning is not drilling down that far. I'm actually going to want to access all of my activities, and I'm going to do that with this circle with the check mark in it. So once I've viewed them, I can actually work through here. If I click on this checkbox, it's going to give me these additional details, and I can work directly out of this view to get those right now 2 activities down to 0, or at least check in and see if I've done what I need to do for the day.
The one thing I would recommend whenever viewing this, you've got a set of filters there. That third filter from the left is your time frame filtering type piece, where you can do due dates, order it by due dates. You can order it by priorities, recently added. If you're a transaction coordinator, it might behoove you to use the address due dates option, where it will group any activities that are for a particular property or transaction together. And even though there may be other things that have to be done at different days than what the activities wouldn't necessarily be in date order, they're by address order first. That way you can kind of group all your transactional things or all your property things together all at once.
Yeah, exactly. And I would definitely take a look at each one of these. And again, going back to if you're a transaction coordinator or an account owner, depending on the level of access that you have within the system, you may find it necessary to use some of these filters to drill down. Okay. So if I'm only concerned with the activities that are assigned to me, and over here on this right view, I could see a sign. Well, if I had admin access or I had account owner access, I would see every team member, every admin's activities, in which case it may be super beneficial for me to come in and just drill down to see my activities. If I have set filters, these dark, the darker blue color will hold itself, and that tells me that a filter has been applied. So I can set any number of filters that I want to include due date ranges, type of activities, certain colors if you're using color to define your activities. And in this case right now, I've selected I want to see incomplete activities that are assigned to this team testing account. If you hold filters or assign filters, those filters are going to stick, and it's an indication that they've stuck because they're dark blue. So if I need to wipe those filters or kind of refresh or see everything again, I'm going to want to use this little X with the circle on it, which is going to wipe everything off and kind of bring me back to default if I have a lot of filters applied.
Each
So
filter does have its own reset. So if you just want to reset one of them, you
at
can
the
go
bottom,
in and just reset that one individual one as well. Just to make sure you're
right?
aware.
Yeah,
You don't-
this reset right here will wipe everything. So my other activity on here that I have is sending these monthly newsletter. So when you think about turning your data into dollars, the very, very first thing that you want to do is, one, make sure that your contacts are getting into the system. Have a systematized way to classify those activities or those contacts so that you're treating different types of contacts in different ways. Once you've put that into place, kind of a more advanced approach is to say, okay, I'm handling each kind of contact in a certain way. I'm establishing and I'm maintaining relationships. But what can I do on a broader scale? Typically, what you're going to go into is branding yourself. You're going to do those things that are more of a higher level that say, hey, I'm an agent, I'm here, and really establish yourself in your marketplace. And so, as I can see here, I have this task. This task is actually going to be part of my agent branding workflow. We're going to go more into agent branding next week. But this task is telling me to send my monthly newsletter. And so depending on what type of account you have inside of Realvolve, you may have the newsletter included in your package and you'd be receiving an email once a month with that download code. When you're getting that code, you want to come into your workflows. You're going to hit plus sign. You're going to add the workflow from the library. In this case, I've already done this for June. Typically, that workflow is going to come out 15 days prior to the next month. So this one was released last May, probably around the 15th. When I got that email, I'm going to take that code and I'm going to come in here. In this case, I want June 2023, and I'm going to install the package. So in that email, they would have given you a code. You're going to paste it in and you're going to hit install. When you do that, it's going to download that newsletter into your account. And so then I have to decide, well, who's going to get my newsletter? And so what I have decided to do is I'm tagging anybody inside of my database that I want to receive my newsletter. And so when Beth Homebuyer comes in, maybe I have a process where, that qualifies her to be on my newsletter. And so or I've just added the tag of newsletter. And so what I've done, and again, I'm in this contact under the radar tab. Down here in the bottom right is where I can manage my tags. So when I typed in newsletter and I hit enter, it added this tag, essentially qualifying Beth Homebuyer to receive the newsletter. If I decide at any point that I don't want this contact to receive the newsletter, I'm going to click the X next to the tag that disqualifies her from showing up on this list when I pull it. So right now she's going to be added to that list. And so when I see this activity inside of my agent branding workflow that says, hey, it's time to send out your monthly newsletter. The first part of that is you're going to have a task that says edit your newsletter. And we're going to kind of show you what that means. This is the second half of this. This newsletter is ready to go. We just need to send it out. I've decided that I send out my newsletter on June 7th or the 7th of every month. So what I'm going to want to do to send that newsletter is I'm going to come in and I'm going to find a list of the people that I want to get that newsletter. And I've defined those because I've added that tag to anybody that I want to receive that newsletter. So I'm going to come into contacts. Under filters, I'm going to use this drop down under all contacts. And I'm going to select create new filter. When I do that, I'm going to select how I want to filter. And in this case, I want to find anybody with the newsletter tag, the tag of newsletter. And so I'm going to search that. There's my newsletter tag. When I select it, you see my contacts went down to 78. That tells me that I have 78 people with that tag of newsletter. If I click next here at the bottom where it says filter name, if I wanted to save this, maybe I don't want to come in and select that drop down and search the tag every single time. I just want to come in and pull a list of people with the newsletter. I can save a shortcut by hitting apply here. And when I do that, instead of creating a new filter, I'll have this option down here to access a saved shortcut and just pull a list of those people. So once I've accessed my drill down list, and these again are the 78 people that I've applied the tag of newsletter to, I'm going to select all, and I'm going to do that by accessing this chevron over here, which is going to take me to all 78 contacts. If I click in the top right, it tells me you've selected all 78. Once I've done that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit email, and I'm going to look for my newsletter. Again, this one I had titled June 2023. You can apply it whatever you want. And here I see the preview. I'm sorry, I see the template itself. And you can see it uses merge field. So I'm probably going to come in and I'm going to show preview so that I can take a look at what this looks like. When I hit show preview, it previewed it, but it brought it to the bottom. So I'm going to scroll down. And I'm going to take a look at what it's going to look like to the person that's receiving it. And so you can see some automation here, okay? This pulled in Red River Realty. If you notice up here in my template, and we'll go over where this is, I'm using the merge field team name, okay? So it's important that you understand what merge fields you're using and where it's pulling that information from. But I've told the system in the back end that my team name is Red River Realty. So it pulled that in for me automatically. I'm also using current user logo. And so it's important that I have that in the system as well. So as you can see, it pulled in my logo. It's got some automation behind pulling in the contact's first name. It also pulled in the name of the person sending this newsletter. And so if you're using that merge field, current user first name or something like that, and you're giving your team access to your newsletter, this can be kind of important as to making decisions on how your newsletter is going to look. Is it going to look like it comes from the team? Is it going to look like it comes from individual agents? And Realvolve has that customization capabilities through the use of merge fields. So we're going to take a look on the back end so that you can kind of make those decisions and make sure that your newsletter is ready to go. When I click preview, I'm able to scroll down and see exactly what this is. At this point, again, I would have already edited this. And I've got social media links here, which we'll take a look at. I've got my agent photo and my contact information. Once I've looked at that and I'm happy with it, I'm going to hit send email. When I hit send email, it's going to log a copy. It's going to send individual emails out to every 71 contacts, log that I sent that email inside of their radar tab, showing that you sent this specific email, and again, send individual copies. As far as customizing your newsletter, when you download that newsletter every month, under templates, you're going to click on your templates to access or edit that template if you need to. In this case, I'm just typing in the year. I could type in June. I could type in the year. By default, these are going to be RV newsletter, and then they're going to be the month and the year. So typically typing in the month or the year to search for those is going to be beneficial. If you just type in June and you have 3 years worth of templates, you may just have to select this year. So again, when you're editing these, pay attention to the merge fields that you're using. In this case, we've got team name, current user logo. That information is stored, the majority of it, in your settings under My Account. So you really want to take a look right here, because like this merge field we've got for team name, that's pulling from here. If you leave this blank and you're using this template, it would just say monthly newsletter June edition. Not the end of the world, but you really want to be conscious as to the merge fields that you're using and whether you intend to use them or not. Same thing with this logo. This current user logo is pulling from here, this user logo. So are you happy with your user logo? Are you using one? Because if it's pulling that merge field and you have no logo, it's just going to pull blank. So contact first name, it's going to pull in the first name of the person that you're sending this email to, and it's going to sign it with whoever is sending this email. So in this case, this would be advantageous for agents that are sending their own newsletter and aren't coming through, with a team. The main thing that you want to do to edit these is, of course, review the context to make sure that you're okay with sending out the information for that month. And then down here under just listed, you have the ability to kind of promote some of your listings. And so if I wanted to put a couple of the listings that I have just that I currently have on the market, I'm going to update that information by clicking in this box, and I can change the image by double clicking on it, clicking upload, and attaching a photo of the property that I have listed for sale. So I'm going to do that for just listed. I'm going to do that for just sold. And I'm going to come down here and pay attention to these merge fields. So again, these current user merge fields, for the most part, are pulling from, actually all of these are pulling from that My Account tab. So making sure that you have these in here. And then you want to customize these social media links, because by default, the system doesn't know your Facebook link. So you want to click on this icon, click on this link, and you want to paste in your personalized Facebook account. So if somebody clicks on this icon, it will take them specifically to yours. If you are not using one, you can click on it and delete it out, and the system will update itself or reformat itself so that it works. Any changes that you make to these templates, you want to click save. Once you do that, then that task, again, under agent branding workflow, is going to remind you to send that out once a month.
Cheryl asked during this is, can she delete that section of new listings if they don't have any new listings? Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you can. The template itself is like any other template. You just click on whatever images or sections or whatever. You got to be careful. Definitely before you do any kind of deleting, I would make sure that you've saved any changes that you want to keep, just in case you delete too much. And of course, you can use the Control-Z to undo what you did, but definitely, make sure you save anything that that you don't want to lose.
Yeah, and these are templates too. So if I click over here, let's just say I'm getting, used to the system or something, and I don't want to mess up that original version. Under any of these templates, you have this copy feature. So if you're really new to editing these templates and you want to make a copy of it to play around with it, feel free to do that. Each one of these are essentially, they're tables. And so if, let's just say I did not want this section of this table, I can click in here and right click. When I do that, I have the ability to delete the table or this section of this. So if I just came in here and I deleted out this photo, it doesn't necessarily delete out that space. And so even as small as it is, I may just say, I don't want that white space altogether. Same thing with this space up here, right? So if I came in and I delete the table, I'm actually controlling the white space, not just getting rid of the photo itself. So you actually have the ability to delete any subsection of this. And for that matter, you can add on to it too, right? These white spaces could be used to add additional content or to add additional tables. So you really do have the ability to customize or make it your own.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on that?
Not on that. We'll come back to a couple others that Cheryl had asked once we get through this that I missed earlier. But we'll
okay, yeah, no problem. We'll leave some time for Q&A. So with this, what I want you to take away from today is that, one, are you managing your contacts? Are they all in the system? Do you have a plan set up for how you're going to define each type of contact and what you're going to do with each contact? And again, like I said, next time we're going to go kind of, and you could call it part 3 if you want, but I really think the final part of turning your database into dollars is to, step 1 is to manage your contact. Each contact, if they are in your system, they should be serving a purpose, meaning if you intend on doing business with that person in the future, I would have them on my contact cross-section. I've ensured that that person's never going to fall through the cracks. That person's personally coming up to me, and that contact cross-section to me says, what can I do to personalize contact with this person? Once you've done that and you've established that kind of relationship building and that relationship management, the next step and what we'll talk about next week is branding. Okay. And we kind of went into a little bit of that with the newsletter today. But that's part of what I think you should be managing your contacts in terms of workflows. Again, we have your 10-year of contact nurture workflow. When you run a transaction workflow, typically on the day of closing, the day after closing, you have a step in there that says, start this client. Some people will choose to nurture the other side of the transaction. That's a personal call. But you're going to say, what am I doing? Because if I just close out this transaction, my communication with this person stops. So typically with a transaction to close, you have two parts. You're going to move that person from your contact cross section, change their status from client to past client, which changes the amount of time because they're technically not a client anymore. You want to move them over to the other bucket so that they move over to quarterly contact or whatever you've established. And you typically are going to start them on some kind of long-term nurture workflow so that you're celebrating their home anniversaries, you're celebrating their birthdays, and you're doing those things that just really make you look like you have your stuff together. Outside of that personal communication, you want to talk about the bigger bucket of branding yourself. So that newsletter is one of many things that you can be doing to branding yourself. So maybe you're doing, neighborhood newsletters or, neighborhood marketing. Maybe you're doing newsletters. Maybe you're doing holiday emails. There's, no shortage of doing that. But a great way to manage what you're doing to brand yourself is doing it through a workflow. So next time we're going to talk about what that looks like and how you can put that into place. So I'd really challenge you between now and next week's meeting to think about those things that you want to be doing to brand yourself. And hopefully next week you'll get some ideas and some implementation steps to start doing those things.
Yeah, I love it whenever we start a discussion like that because so many brains are coming in and giving what they do, what they've done, what works, what doesn't work. And it's just a great learning process that works well.
Yeah, for sure. So I would challenge you to do that. Let us know, what you're doing and what you'd like to be doing. And we're happy to say, well, here's an idea on, how you could do that through the system. So yeah, definitely bring those things next week. These office hours are really meant to get your questions answered in real time, sometimes through demonstration, and make sure that we're providing you guys with usable, actionable content. But we understand that it's a lot. And so premium services, my entire department is dedicated to working one-on-one with you to provide you with these workflows, to customize these workflows with you personally, and then to help you implement them so you're set up for success. If you have any questions on how premium services works, feel free to reach out to me, Kendra@realvolve.com or sales@realvolve.com to get that information. And for being on our webinars, we give you 25% off of that program if you go through our Navigator program. Looking at the weeks ahead, like I said, we're going to be talking about agent branding. We're going to dedicate time to talking about building your team, or what does that look like if it gets bigger than just you? And for those teams that are already there, what are some ways that we can maximize your efficiency inside of Realvolve? We're going to talk about automating your business, using our Google add-on sheet for reporting, and then leveling up your contract to close process. If you're doing any kind of business at all, you have a contract to close process. Hopefully it's in a workflow. Even if it is in a workflow, we're going to talk about ways that you can make that workflow more efficient and some, tips and tricks to try to make sure that you're using the system at its best. Outside of these, if you guys have questions, you want to make sure that you're using our contact us chat feature during the times that that's available. If you see something in your system that's just not quite working right, hit submit a support ticket and use your how do I and your help to try to get information to articles and how-tos to kind of, answer some of those other questions that you guys have. Okay, what questions do we have, Mark?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back up. Whenever you were talking about the contact cross section, Charlotte asked, if I have a client on a workflow, there is a different timeline for a contact from what contact grid shows. How do I get the contacts to sync with each other's? So the way I'm understanding that, Cheryl, is you're saying I've got this workflow running and it's contacting them every so many days or whatever. That if if they don't fall outside that fail-safe time frame, they won't show up in that grid. They don't need to show up in that grid. They're part of the activities that you'll be looking at in your activities list every day. And these are things like, I've got to do this today because this is what's due today. The contact cross-section is really for making sure that if somebody isn't in a workflow or they've fallen through somehow, that they don't not get contacted. Does that make sense? I hope it
Yeah,
does.
let me give you an example of that. And I think probably what she's talking about is the 10-year of contact nurture workflow. Inside of that workflow, again, what we said is when we close somebody out in contract to close, we start them on 10-year of contact nurture. One of the things that we have inside of that workflow is an activity to contact your past clients quarterly. What we've done to manage both of those is when you see that activity comes up that says, hey, contact Bob, it's been a quarter since he closed his house. One of those checklist activities is your last call date. So if you update your last call date or your last personal visit date, that is the trigger for your contact cross section. Thereby, it would kick Bob off of that contact cross section and bring him back in another quarter. If you're managing your contact cross section, it does not stop your activity that has started from that workflow from showing up, in which case you would say, hey, I just saw Bob last week. He's good to go. You're just going to check off that activity and go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say, you may choose to manage clients on one or the other. You may feel like that the contact cross section is efficient enough where you don't create those activities inside your 10-year contact nurture. You just need to ensure that they show up on your 10-year contact nurture or your contact cross section. So just making sure that they're on one or the other, but it's a good problem to have, right? Like you're making sure that that contact is connected, but essentially those are the two ways. Your contact cross section or your activity should be reminding you. If you don't want both, you probably just need to tweak which one you don't want to do. Or like I said, really use that last call date to update it so he's not showing up on your contact cross section.
Very good. Second question. What's the best practice for a contact workflow for a birthday, but I don't know the date yet? I want to keep that date and I will get it, but it's clogging up my activity. So just not knowing the date, but still starting them on that workflow. Do you want to answer that?
So one of the things that, and I completely understand what you're saying. Let me reshare my screen. Can you see my Realvolve screen?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that I would say right now, it's probably not going to be the best. So what she's asking her, that question is essentially saying, if I start a workflow that says celebrate Bob's birthday every year, and the system doesn't necessarily know when Bob's birthday is yet, the system can generate activities sometimes that don't necessarily have a date assigned with them. That's where your filtering or sorting of activities can come in. So if I come in here to filter and I do by due date, automatically when I did that, did you see how it shifted how those activities were set up over here on the left? Well, if I click over here on this chevron, it's going to repopulate my activities by due date and ultimately putting anything without a due date yet assigned at the bottom. So this filtering can be a way to kind of control that or make sure you're prioritizing what you need to be looking at.
Yeah. And I'm going to say one more thing. Honestly, that's also a good key to yourself for a contact. Hey, Bob, I was looking in my database and realized I don't have your birthday, and we really enjoy celebrating birthdays with our clients. Would it be possible that I get your birthday?
Yeah. Or get on Facebook and see the last time everybody told Bob happy birthday.
Yeah. And then once you've got that, and if you've got the workflow already running, once you put that birthday in, it will auto backfill all those activities for you. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I delete the section that we already answered that? When I tag one person of a married couple as mom, it's tagging both husband and wife. How can I keep the tag from going only on to mom? So I answered this in the chat section, but whenever you're in a contact area and you go into the personal details, there's a section there for the married or the relationship that's there. And if you've got a married couple or whatever, and you want to keep their certain fields synchronized, there's a tag checkbox right here. And if that's currently checked, anytime you add a tag to one person that's linked to another, they're going to synchronize. They're going to keep their tags the same. In this case, in this particular situation, you're going to want to uncheck that option. At this point, that's the only way of doing it. We probably could or should, and I've discussed this or I've thought about this, is making certain tags syncable and some not, in which case we could set the mom to not and it just goes, but right now it's not set that way.
Yeah. So if they're already synced, just delete it from the person that doesn't qualify for it. And then again, come into your contact tab under personal details, take a look at that, your marriage setup and see if this is tagged more. It is probably, that's what's making that connection.
Yeah. Bobby G says, with a given contact, where's a quick way to see what workflows are running for that contact? So currently, and this is something I am in midst of addressing, but currently there's really no way of seeing which workflow they're on automatically. However, what we do recommend is that whenever you set up a workflow, one of the very first activities that you've got on there might be to do some kind of action itself. And inside that action, you can have it auto tag a given the contact that you're starting that workflow on. So at the very beginning of this, just go to one. It doesn't really matter which one, unless you know.
Yeah, so I don't see that task in here, but that's what this did. We had an activity. I probably deleted it out. Going back to our 10-year of contact nurture, one of the activities in there, its sole purpose, it says tag this workflow. So by you launching that workflow on this person, it actually runs that task, and it added this 1RV10 nurture. As far as what you are tagging it, the verbiage on there, you can choose whatever you want. The benefit of doing that is you could come in here to your contacts, filter for tag, and you could get a list of anybody that's on that 1RV10 nurture or whatever you decide to do. Outside of tagging a workflow when you launch it, which all of our Navigator program workflows, they all have a tagging sequence to them. So you would be able to do that. Bobby, you're in that program. So we can talk about that the next time that we meet to make sure that you have a clear understanding of that. I would also encourage you to take a look at your activities. If I go into activities in incomplete, I can see here that these activities are due. It tells me the name of this workflow here. Okay. So I can see that this is kind of just a birthday activity, but I can also see that this contact is on this lead buyer workflow. So that's another kind of indication of what workflows that they're currently on.
Nicole, if I start a workflow and add an activity in 6 months, will it be added to everyone on that workflow?
No.
So whenever you start a workflow, basically what it's doing is it's taking a snapshot of that workflow, the way it looks at that point in time, and making a copy and putting it onto that contact, property, or transaction. So if you go in and you make a change, you add or delete or something like that, it will remain on the original workflow. If you go in and you add a new activity in 6 months and want that particular activity applied to everybody, you would have to go in there and start that workflow again. Go ahead and click on start a workflow from where you're at.
I'll just do the 10-year that we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Let's say, for instance, you've added a given, or a given touch point, and you've only got so many there, but you can unselect all of them, like what she's just done, and just select one activity that you want it to start on that particular contact. Now, it won't do it for every contact that's on that workflow, but it will add it to the ones that have that you've selected, checked to keep for that particular contact.
Thank you, guys. Could be there. I apologize. I'm just going to jump in here. There is no way to put a whole group of people on a workflow, correct?
Through the mobile app, you can actually do it. I added it as a mobile app feature that's not currently in here. The plan was to go ahead and add it here. However, we've had a lot of people, they go in, they add a bunch of workflows, and then they don't think about what that workflow does. And all of a sudden now they have 50, 60, 100 phone calls in one day. And it's like, oh, I need to stop all these. And then it's a real challenge to stop. So I am working on a method for making that more comprehensive and being able to allow you to add without the complexity that goes along with it. So
yeah, and we don't have the way, and I think the takeaway from there is be very, very intentional on what you're doing. If you had the ability to go in and mass launch your 10-year of contact nurture, knowing that you're going to have phone call reminders, if you launch that on 50 people, is that sustainable to contact 50 people in one day? It's not, okay?
No, but it would be great to launch a birthday one on, 400 people at a time.
Well, here's the good thing about birthdays. If you put a birthday in the system will create an activity for you to recognize that person's birthday. So by adding a birthday day,
add activities to each and every one of those.
Are you using that 10-year contact nurture?
I am, but I have my birthday workflow is separate.
Okay.
I'm working on a method for allowing that. Right now it doesn't do it, but
okay.
Making sure that people are safe is I've run into it so many times where people are just not thinking, and it's common where they'll go in there. It's like, oh, I want these 400 people to get this. And then all of a sudden now there was a phone call in there for something that they didn't think about. And now I've got 400 phone calls on one day.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, that makes perfect sense. So I appreciate you guys thinking through that way. And but I do look forward to being able to put them on some sort of workflow altogether.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I would maybe suggest in the meantime, Nicole, segmenting that. And so maybe you do it by month or week, right? So you can come into your contacts and pull a filter and say, who's my birthday people this week? And starting it, kind of segmenting it.
They're all filtered, and that's what we're working on. It would just be great because I have 3 different things that happen for birthdays that different people are doing. So,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is all the questions that I see so far. Are there any others? Nothing? You're welcome, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you guys, everybody, for attending. Again, come back next week. We're going to kind of deep dive into this a little bit more and give you some tips and tricks on branding inside of the system.
Absolutely. Kendra, you did awesome. I always admire your ability to go in and explain everything so simply. So hopefully everybody else sees that as well, and appreciate everybody being here. So we will catch you next week. Have a great day.
See you guys. Bye.